Hello and welcome to another screencast, this time in aggression. Just a reminder in terms of these PowerPoints, so the yellow text box refers to the task for students, the green text boxes are for note-taking sections for students, the blue text boxes are differentiation tasks, and the red text boxes are for teachers, teaching and learning strategies and ideas. Okay, so the syllabus for this particular topic asks you to understand what the definition of direct and indirect aggression is. You also need to be able to understand both of those terms and be able to apply obviously the examples to direct and indirect aggression in sports. So without further ado, let's get going on this topic. Okay, so first and foremost, if we think of the definition of aggression, okay, so it's this idea of deliberately harming or injuring another person. Okay, so we have the intent to cause harm or injury to another person, and it's a deliberate form of action. And this can be through both physical or mental aggression. Okay, so it's important to note that it's through physical, so to do with the body, but can also be aggressive in regards to mentally as well, okay, to do with the mind. Okay, so first task, just pause your video here. Why does a performer become aggressive? Okay, so have a go at answering that question. Try and come up with as many ideas as you can. Okay, so hopefully you come up with lots of different ideas in regards to why we become aggressive. One thing might be due to the official, the referee, for example, in terms of decision that's been made. Another example might be in terms of the result or the outcome of maybe either conceding a goal, or might be conceding a try or a basket if it's in basketball. Okay, so we become aggressive due to the outcome of the event. We also might become aggressive for various other reasons. Okay, for example, provocation from an opponent. Our opponent has maybe fouled us or said something to us that might make us aggressive. Okay, you may have come up with lots of other reasons as well, including, for example, external factors like the crowd. Okay, so there's loads of examples that you could have come up with in regards to why we become aggressive. Another task for you to do, this differentiated task now. Okay, so I want you to have a go at what are the impacts on performance. So how does aggression impact our performance? Pause the video here. Okay, so you've hopefully unpaused the video now. Think about what the impacts are. They could both be positive or negative. Okay, so think of reasons why becoming aggressive might actually improve our performance. Well, ultimately, if we show aggressive tendencies, but we channel that aggression, and we call that assertion. So that's basically where we're a bit more proactive, we're a bit more direct in terms of our behavior, but we're not trying to deliberately harm someone, for example. But that might just be the fact that we are a little bit more direct in our approach. It could be sort of driving through in a layup. Okay, in basketball, for example, it might just be going hard into a tackle, whether it be in football or rugby, for example, but that might improve our performance. I suppose the negative impacts of being aggressive in performance is that ultimately we might make a rash decision. We might lose our concentration. We might lose our focus. We might actually get too over aroused, which that's going to have an impact perhaps on our execution of our technique, for example. Okay, and ultimately, if we're not making those correct decisions, then our performance is definitely going to be impacted. We're going to be erratic in terms of our decision making. Okay, so lots of things there that we could have mentioned in terms of negative impacts on performance. Okay, so let's look first of all at direct aggression. So when we look at direct aggression, we're talking about an aggressive act which involves physical contact with others. Okay, so an example here might be when we punch an opponent or someone else. Okay, that is what we call direct aggression. It's towards another person, and there's physical contact involved in this specific situation. So again, can you come up with any other examples of direct aggression? Okay, pause the video here, try and come up with 2 or 3 other examples. Okay, so hopefully you come up with lots of different examples there. You could have talked about, remember in sort of football, we may, for example, have a 2-footed challenge. That would be obviously physical contact perhaps towards another individual. We're trying to cause them harm, so that would be direct aggression. And hopefully you've come up with lots of other examples that involve physical contact towards someone else. It could be in any sport for that matter. Okay, the fact that we've become aggressive. Okay, so another quick sort of question that you might want to pause the video here at and try and see if you can describe how direct aggression may be used to improve performance. Okay, so pause the video here, see if you can answer that. Okay, so things you may have talked about in terms of the answer here is, remember, one of the direct aggression examples we could have talked about was a tackle in rugby. Okay, and obviously we need to tackle in rugby, don't we? It is a contact sport. So ultimately that can obviously improve performance ultimately for the rugby player, because it might stop the player from running past us, okay, in terms of getting towards our try line. Same way we could have mentioned, obviously, in football, for example, another invasive sport, if we tackle in football, we try and win the ball back from our opponent. Okay, so any of those kind of examples that you used, or any other examples that were similar to that, would have got you the mark. Okay. So let's move on to indirect aggression. So here we're talking about aggression which doesn't involve physical contact. So it's opposite, or it's different to direct aggression. The aggression's taken out on an object to gain an advantage. Okay, so it's important to note that we are still, we're still frustrated, we're still angry normally when we're aggressive, but we're taking that frustration, we're taking that anger out on an object, okay, to gain the advantage. An example you might have used there would be hitting a tennis ball hard during a rally. Okay, so we become angry, frustrated, but we're taking that aggression out on the tennis ball in terms of hitting it as hard as we can during the course of a rally. So again, pause your video here, see if you can come up with any other examples of indirect aggression. Okay, so hopefully you come up with a few different other examples in terms of indirect aggression. Okay, and let's now see, before we go through those examples, let's now see if you can answer this question in particular. So describe how indirect aggression may be used to improve performance. Okay, so some things you could have talked about. Okay, another example of indirect aggression would be, for example, a bowler bowling a ball in cricket and bowling a bouncer. So he's doing that because he's taking, well, he's trying to maybe intimidate the batsman, perhaps. Okay, so ultimately by bowling that ball as a bouncer, it goes and bounces on the ground and towards maybe their head and over their head. It might intimidate, it might make the batsman less confident. The same way you could have used an example in terms of smashing shuttlecock hard in badminton, and ultimately you're trying to get that shuttlecock towards the floor quicker, and you're obviously trying to win that point. So anything there that mentioned about the fact that we're taking it out on an object, okay, to gain an advantage, would have got you the marks for this specific question. And finally, for teaching and learning strategies in terms of teachers, things we could have talked about here, things that you might have some ideas in the classroom, you might look at scenarios. Okay, so give students various scenarios perhaps, okay, which might focus on them deciding if it's direct or indirect aggression. Okay, so come up with some different examples from different sports to help them understand whether it's direct or indirect. Also use things like picture tasks. Okay, so things like getting the students in pairs or in groups. Okay, and then them deciding by looking at the pictures whether they think they're direct or indirect examples in sport. Okay, and ultimately, can they think of any other direct or indirect examples of aggression in sport? Okay, and to differentiate it, think of applying that to performance. So how does it impact performance, both on the aggressor but also on the recipient? Okay, so think about the fact there, I've given that example at the bottom we had in the previous slide as well, about the fact that the bowler in cricket will bowl a bouncer to the batsman. The intention is to cause intimidation, and it's to try and get that batsman to lose confidence. Okay, so good luck with this task. It's a fairly simple concept, but still needs to be hopefully taught and implemented